Ireland, mythical, magical, mystical. A Guide to Hidden Ireland. The Hidden Gems Series. By Christy Nicholas. Part 4 of 4. County Donegal. Ardara. The beach near Ardara features a very long inlet with villages all along it and a wonderful rock outcropping which gets slammed by the waves on a windy day. On the other side of the inlet are the Éire waterfall and Magira sea caves, with a surreal exploration into 7-foot-tall sand dunes to find them. Ardara is a small town on the west coast of County Donegal. It is a very walkable, friendly place, with great pubs and stunning sights nearby. Donal Cross. Carnanag is a town on the Inishowen 100 driving route and well worth a visit if you are at all interested in Celtic high crosses. We came across this place by accident, and I was thrilled to find the 7th century Donal Celtic cross, also known as St. Patrick's Cross. It has 2 pillars, one on either side, with carved Celtic knotwork faces on them, strangely reminiscent of the faces on the Isle of Lewis chess pieces found in Scotland. Glencolumkille Folk Village. The lovely Glencolumkille Folk Village, aka Father McDyer's Folk Village Museum, is the recreation of a replica of a small thatch village that was typical in the 18th, 19th, and early 20th centuries. Each cottage, all with thatched roofs, of course, has furniture, tools, and decor typical of the era they represent. There is a small gift shop with local crafts, and a cafe to stop at and enjoy. This village is set in one of Ireland's Gaeltacht, Irish-speaking regions, which overlooks Glen Bay Beach. Further up the road, there is a pilgrimage with stations which you can follow, and a stunning view across the sea cliffs. Griannan of Éire, also known as the Temple of the Sun, is a Bronze Age fort, may have been built around 500 to 600 CE, or perhaps even farther back, and commands a spectacular view of the surrounding countryside. It's not a particularly tall hill, but it's taller than anything nearby. You can see north over the Inishowen Peninsula. The fort is in good repair, and you can climb up steps built into the walls to the top of the fort. It was the ancient seat of the O'Neill clan for many centuries. The drive up to the fort is a bit harrowing, with single-track roads and very high hedges. However, there's a decent-sized parking area near the top, and the rest of the distance is a short climb. It has boards for maintenance vehicles to drive up, and you could probably get a wheelchair up with some effort. It is very close to Derry City, and an easy trip from many places in County Donegal. It would make a wonderful stop on the way to or from the Inishowen Peninsula. Inishowen 100. This is a 100-mile-long scenic drive around the Inishowen Peninsula in County Donegal. It is a lovely day trip, showing beaches, sea cliffs, charming towns, and all sorts of Irish delights. Technically, it starts in Bridgend, but you can start wherever you wish. Don't miss delights such as Kinnigo Bay, a serene sandy beach surrounded by rocky cliffs, or the Wee House of Malin, an ancient ruined monastic church site on a rocky point. There are thatched cottages dotted here and there, of course. Do be careful, our TomTom GPS unit sent us up over a mountain on a sheep track. While visiting Malin town, why not journey up to Malin Head, which is the most northerly point on the island of Ireland, opposite is Mizen Head in southwest Cork. Kilclooney Dolmen. Just northwest of Ardara, take a 20-minute drive to Kilclooney Beg. Park near St. Conal's Church. There is a small farmhouse nearby. The dolmen is in the boglands behind the farmhouse. Be sure to wear shoes which will stand up to boggy conditions. Please stay to the right and close the gate behind you. Go through the gate, and about 10 minutes of walking will get you there. As close as it is to a village, the peat fields around the dolmen make it isolated and lonely, very primeval. You can't get right up to it, there are ditches dug around it to prevent this. However, it is nonetheless very impressive, and dates from about 3500 BCE. There is a second, smaller dolmen behind the first. Kinnigo Bay. Kinnigo Beach, near Mossy Glen in the Inishowen Peninsula, is a spectacular beach and well isolated from the teeming tourist crowds. Its soft, sandy beach is a haven from the rocky outcroppings, and you can see for miles over the sea into the distance. One of the ships of the Spanish Armada, the Trinidad Valenciana, sank off the coast here in 1588. Mount Éire. Éire Mountain dominates the landscape in this area and is the tallest peak in the county. It is a fairly hikeable mountain, with a one-man's pass along the top. However, you will need proper gear, good shoes, a walking stick, etc. If you want advice or assistance, you could go by, or stay at, the Éire Hostel, just down the road from the car park you should start at for the climb. Éire Hostel has recently obtained green status by the EU. They can lead treks up the mountain fairly frequently and are very helpful to those wanting to make the journey. The surrounding countryside is sublime even if you don't climb. Éire is at one end of the Seven Sisters and nearby the Bloody Foreland. St. Columba's Well. If you drive to the other side of the bay from the Glencolumco Folk Village and walk up the promontory, you can find St. Columcille's Holy Well and the other holy stations associated with St. Columcille and his journeys. Even if you aren't interested with the spirituality of the location, the views are spectacular. County Down. Ards Peninsula. This arm of land which cradles Strangford Lough from the Irish Sea has many towns and villages strung along it, a mild marine climate, and much wildlife. Sites such as Scrabo Tower, Mount Stewart House and Gardens, Millisle Seaside Village and Amusement Park, Portavagee with traditional fishing boats and fresh seafood run along it. You can take the ferry between Strangford Town and Portaferry if you only have time for part of the peninsula. Castle Ward. This castle looks more like a palace or manor house, built in the 18th century by Bernard Ward, the first Viscount Bangor. They could not agree on style, Palladian versus Gothic, so they split the house in half, with one Palladian facade and one Gothic facade. There is an extensive estate with gardens, walking trails, mills, shops, and a fortified tower house. The castle is near the town of Strangford. Nendrum Monastic Site. Dating from the 5th century, it has links to St. Patrick and consists of 3 nested drystone walls, a central church ruin, and sundial, with the remains of a round tower and graveyard. Find this site near the town of Comer. County Dublin. Ballybrack-Dolman. To prove that you can expect to find interesting things in unassuming places, situated in the suburbs of Dublin on a residential green, you can visit the Ballybrack-Dolman. Bookshops. Dublin has many hidden bookshops, many of them with both new and used books, great for those that love to browse, find hidden written treasures, or just like to relax with a good book on a rainy afternoon in the city. The childhood home of George Bernard Shaw on 33 Synge Street is one such place, as is Hodges Figgis on Dawson Street, especially for books on Irish topics. Books Upstairs on College Green has a collection of new and hard-to-find books. Chapters on Mid-Abbey Street has a huge selection of used books, as does the Winding Stair Bookshop on Lower Ormond Quay. Christ Church Cathedral. This cathedral dates back to pre-Norman times when the timber church was raised and the stone one went up in its place, courtesy of private funds from Bishop Lawrence O'Toole, now Street Lawrence, and Richard Strongbow de Clare, a Norman nobleman who married the King of Leinster's only daughter, Aoife. Christ Church boasts the largest open crypts in Europe, stunning architecture and history, and the mummified remains of a cat and rat. During the cleaning of one of the organs in storage, a cat and rat were found in one of the pipes, the cat probably having chased the rat into the pipe and both getting stuck. The pair have been put into a protective case and put on display. Also on display in the church include an effigy to Strongbow. Cuchulainn statue. The General Post Office, GPO, is on most Dublin tour highlights due to its role in the 1916 Rising, but inside the Mail Hall, there is a lovely bronze statue of the legendary Irish hero, Cuchulainn. The statue is a memorial to those that participated in the Rising and depicts the hero facing his enemies even in death, having tied himself to a pillar. Dún Laoghaire. Pronounced Dunleary, this is a lovely seaside town in the outskirts of Dublin which makes a nice base to explore the area. Éire is Ireland's oldest established town, earning its charter in 498 CE. The town name was changed to Kingstown in Georgian times but saw the name reverted during the time of the Irish Free State. Getting its start as a harbour town, Éire still remains the hub of sea travel, with ferries to England and Wales, the National Yacht Club, and twin piers which protect an active inner harbour. There are lovely views out to sea and to the Howth Peninsula across Dublin Bay. There are many things to do in and near Éire, including the Sunday Market in the People's Park, Joyce Tower, and a National Maritime Museum. Glasthule village melds into Éire where you will find Bullet Castle. Stay on this road for Dalkey, a town famous for not just the Seven Castles, but also for being Ireland's Beverly Hills. The Dart commuter train runs along the eastern coast between Greystones, County Wicklow and Howth in North County Dublin, with 3 stops in Dublin City, making this an ideal location to base from. Glasnevin Cemetery. The first grave at Glasnevin Cemetery, aka Prospect Cemetery, was dug in 1832. Until this time, Catholics never had a graveyard of their own, due to repressive penal laws. Today the cemetery is the largest in Ireland, encompassing 124 acres and over 1 million interments. Glasnevin offers a fascinating view into the changing style of burial monuments of nearly 2 centuries, from the austere to classic high cross to nationalistic revival. In an effort to deter body snatchers, Sacam-UPS or resurrectionists, Glasnevin was surrounded by high medieval-style walls with 10 watchtowers overlooking the grounds and surrounding area. Armed night watchmen were hired, who became known as Charlies. At one point, Cuban bloodhounds were used to patrol freely around the site, but had to be dispensed of because they were unable to tell friend from foe. Some of Ireland's most famous and most notorious are buried here: politicians, activists, and rebels, to artists, writers, and musicians, etc. Take an organized tour or get a map from the visitor center and wander on your own. When you reach the original entrance to the site, take a moment to step through the gates and into John Kavanagh's pub, better known as the Gravediggers Pub. The pub was established in 1833 and has not been refurbished since, with the exception of some dim lighting. Ivy Gardens. These gardens can be found behind the National Concert Hall in Dublin City near St. Stephen's Green. They were created in 1863 by Sir Benjamin Lee Guinness, 1st Baronet, son of Sir Arthur Guinness of the Guinness Brewery Guinnesses. The style of these gardens is partway between French formal and English landscape style. They include a rustic grotto, a cascade, sunken formal panels of lawn, archery grounds, and rockeries. Malahide. Malahide is a coastal town, 10 miles north of Dublin, with a fantastic active fishing community since Viking times. There was once a monastic settlement here. St. Sylvester's Well can still be visited on Old Street. The main draw to this town at Malahide Castle, the grounds of which include a restored gardens and the model rail village for train enthusiasts. Malahide is serviced by the Dart, with a connection at Connolly Station in Dublin City. Marsh's Library. While the old library in Trinity College is gorgeous, and on most must-see lists of Dublin, another lovely old library is Marsh's, just up the Cathedral Close from St. Patrick's Cathedral. It is close to its original condition and won't be as crowded as the more famous cousin in Trinity. The Viking Experience. While this isn't exactly a hidden gem, it does have some fascinating aspects that make it worth a visit. The information offered in the Synod Hall in Dublinia is quite interesting, and it's near the last remaining piece of Dublin City's original city walls, as well as Ireland's oldest church, St. Audouin's. County Fermanagh. Boa Island. This island near Lough Erne is about 5 miles long, but very narrow. There is a road bridge onto the island, so no ferry is necessary. There are raths, carved stones, and a cairn. The main feature of Boa Island is the Caldrach Cemetery near Petigo. Little is known about this cemetery, but it has been dated to the early Irish Christian period, 400–800 CE. Tucked in an enclosure of trees, this cemetery contains little more than stone markers for those buried here. What makes this graveyard remarkable are two hand-carved anthropomorphic stone statues called the Boa Island figure, aka the Janus stone, and the Lustimore Island figure. These carvings are either pre- or early Christian creations or may date from the Iron Age. Castle Saunderson. Once the seat of the Saunderson family from the 16th century plantation period, the house has seen a number of uses, including a hotel, but was damaged by fire, the third to occur in the castle, and never refurbished. The house was eventually sold to Scouting Ireland in 1997. President Michael D. Higgins unveiled the €3.7 million European-funded Castle Saunderson International Scouting Centre in Cavan on August 18, 2012. Castle Saunderson is on the Cavan/Fermanagh border near the town of Belturbet, Company. Cavan. Marble Arch Caves Global Geopark. Formed 650 million years ago, underground rivers meander through the mountains. You can take a boat ride on through the caverns to see the stalagmites and stalactites, as well as the Castlegore Pool, a natural rimstone pool and the largest in these caves. Legends of Finn Mac Cúhail are associated with this area, as well as the Tuatha Dé Danann. County Galway. Aran Islands, Galway. The Aran Islands consist of 3 islands, Éire, Innisman, and Innismore. These listings are for Innismore, the Big Island. Man of Erin Cottage. Back in 1931, there was a film made called The Man of Erin. It was about a fisherman's life on the island, and a wonderful snapshot into the way of life at the time in this rustic place. This B&B cottage was created out of other cottages for this film and is conveniently located near the hamlet of Yearning and the stunning cliff fort of Duniongosa. The hosts, Joe and Maura, are warm and welcoming, as is the peat fire in the main cottage. They are charming hosts, and happy to arrange things for you. Bike rentals, rides to the ferry, etc. Please, come by and give this piece of history a chance to get into your heart and soul. Seal Colony on Innismore. As you drive, walk, or ride your bikes along the road from Kilronan to the hamlet of Yearning, there is a fork in the road, head towards the coast, to the right. As you go along this road, you will see several lengths of beach, one of them called Portmurvey. Look closely! There are likely seals sunning themselves on the rocks below. Did that rock move? Yes. It's a seal. At first, we didn't see any of the seals move. We had the uncharitable thought perhaps they were just statues, put there to fool the tourists, and then one started flipping his tail at us, and we knew they were, indeed, real. 7 churches. Na Sich Di Teampale in Irish is a ruin of several ancient churches on the island. The site is near the middle of the island and can be reached in many ways from the main port town of Kilronan. It's about 5 miles in, and a lovely long walk or bike ride. Alternatively, you can hire one of the many pony and traps or taxis which ferry tourists around the sites on the island. It's a short distance past the Man of Erin Cottage and Dun Angus. T. Joe Waddy's pub if you spend some time on Innismore, and I mean more than the couple of hours which a day trip encompasses, please take some time to visit Joe Waddy's pub. Many nights have music, and the place gets pumping with drinks and dancing, though some nights are quieter. We have been there on a Saturday night, and the music was grand, the crowds were thick, and the buzz was high. And we have been there on a Sunday evening, after the day trippers and weekenders had gone home, when it was quieter. The Aran Islands are one of Ireland's Gaeltacht's Irish-speaking region, so most of the conversations I heard around me were in Irish, and the owner came over for a lovely chat. Not only do they have fantastic food, but the owners and staff truly care about the hospitality of the place and the island. This pub is on the edge of Kilronan, on the main road out of town, you can't miss it. Don't forget to stop and say hello to the true owner, a wee black dog called Guinness. Cool Park. Once the home of Lady Augusta Gregory, all that remains of the once grand estate today is the stable, now serving as a tea room, and the original walled garden. Lady Gregory was instrumental in writing down the oral histories of the servants and tenants on her land, thus preserving them for future generations. She and close friend, William Butler Yeats, created a community of writers who came to Cool House for relaxation, creativity, and other literary pursuits. This group of literary enthusiasts included dramatist George Bernard Shaw, poet John Masefield, first President of Ireland, Douglas Hyde, playwright Sean O'Casey, artist, writer, and brother to W. B. Yeats, Jack B. Yeats, among others, including Eleanor Monsell, who designed Dublin's Abbey Theatre's logo, which is still in use today. This group founded the Abbey Theatre, and they were instrumental in preserving Irish literature during a time called the Irish Literary Revival. Each of the members of this community carved their initials into the trunk of a young copper beech tree, which is now the main attraction in the old walled garden. The autograph tree is now behind protective high fencing for the protection of the tree. Their estate grounds are now mostly left to nature and open to the public and full of trails to follow through the woods, and along the banks of Cool Loch near Gort you will find the Lady Gregory Museum, and further along is the turn-off for W. B. Yeats' famous Yeats Tower, aka the Orballally, where Yeats wrote his famous story, The Tower. Kilmacduagh Monastery. About 5 kilometers from Gort, this monastery has the tallest round tower in Ireland, nicknamed the Leaning Tower of Kilmacduagh. There are several smaller church and castle ruins on the site, and well worth an exploration. The site was founded on legend, as St. Colman MacDaw was supposedly walking through the woods when his girdle fell to the ground, prompting him to build the monastery there. It is also said that no man of the diocese will die from lightning. Portumna Castle. A stately manor house open to the public, this semi-fortified house includes geometric gardens, with fruit trees, flowers, herbs, and vegetables. It is near Loch Derg and the River Shannon, as well as Portumna Forest Park. It is considered the height of elegance and taste, at least it was by its builder, Richard Burke, 4th Earl of Clanricarde. It houses a museum for the flight of the wild geese, which refers to the departure of the Irish Jacobite army after the Williamite War in Ireland, circa 1691. County Kerry. Ardfert Cathedral. We came across this cathedral on our way from Ballyvaughan to Dingle one day. Once off the Shannon ferry in Tarbert, we took the coastal road toward Dingle and stopped in Ardfert. The cathedral was built in the 12th century on the site of a 6th century settlement founded by St. Brendan, aka St. Brendan the Navigator. It fell into ruin in 1641 during the Irish Rebellion. While it is an extensive ruin, you will be treated to some lovely architecture, including lovely colonnades and Romanesque doorways and windows, blind arcading, ecclesiastical effigies, etc. There is a carving of a wyvern in one of the windows, and there are grotesques and Celtic crosses here and there. It is on a busy street, so there lacks the quiet solitude of some of the better situated abbeys, but it is worth a visit. Carrigafoyle Castle. Built in the 1490s by Conor Lyeth O'Connor Carey, Carrigafoyle was considered one of the strongest of Irish fortresses of its time. This is a large tower house which is common across the north of the Munster province. It stands on the rock shore in a small bay off the Shannon estuary near Ballalongford, County Kerry. The castle was once called the Guardian of the Shannon because of its strategic position overlooking the river, which was a once active shipping lane that supplied goods to Limerick City. The castle fell in battle in the famous siege of Carrigafoyle Castle at Easter in 1580. Today the keep stands sentinel to a pastime. Celtic and Prehistoric Museum. This museum is located on the Dingle Peninsula near Ventry. This small, privately owned museum has a surprising wealth of ancient artifacts, from fossilized bones to Celtic tools and jewelry. The museum also has Ireland's only fully intact woolly mammoth skull, as well as the only complete baby dinosaur skeleton, a large nest of dinosaur eggs, and a cave bear skeleton. The owner is an American expat who is passionate about his collection and makes a lovely host. He has local wares for sale in his shop. Puck the Goat Fair. The Puck Fair is Ireland's oldest festival, and one legend says its origins come from a billy goat, or puck, which was separated from his herd when Cromwellian forces were approaching the area. The appearance of the exhausted animal alerted villages, and they were able to protect themselves from attack. Every year a group of people go up into the mountains and catch a wild goat. The goat is brought back to the town for the crowning ceremony. Traditionally, a young schoolgirl from one of the local primary schools is crowned Queen of the Puck, and it's she who crowns the goat King Puck. The goat is then put into a small cage on a high stand in the middle of the town square and remains there for the duration of the festival. Of course, he's treated well and brought down at night. Pubs are allowed to stay open until 3 a.m., which is an exception in that pubs in Ireland are required to be closed by midnight most nights, 11 p.m. on Sunday. The fair includes the usual food and music, craft stalls and family activities. Also occurring at this time is the famous Killarglen Horse Fair takes place on the 10th, and on the 11th is the Killarglen Cattle Fair. Both events drawing additional visitors to the fair. Risk Monastic Settlement. Located on the Dingle Peninsula, this extensive site has several cloakins, or dry stone huts, which are the remains of a 6th century monastic site. It is not far from the Gallerus Oratory, and has its own square oratory, or small church. There is the Risk Stone, decorated with spiral Celtic designs. Both Risk Monastic Settlement and Gallerus Oratory are well signposted on the Slee Head Drive near Ballyferriter. Skellig Michael. Is the collective name for islands off the South Kerry coast. The Great Skellig is the largest of the islands and which was inhabited by the greater community of monks who founded a monastery here sometime between the 6th and 8th centuries in a place considered the edge of the world. It was occupied into the 12th century, being abandoned for no apparent reason. This site today is on the UNESCO World Heritage List. 13 boat licenses are granted each year to tour operators who are allowed to make one trip to the islands per day in the summer season, April through October, weather permitting. For safety reasons, the islands are closed in inclement weather due to falling rocks on the islands. There are also dive sites around the islands which can be accessed by private boats, but access onto the islands is prohibited. While this site is not exactly hidden, it is a bit more difficult to get to. I have tried 3 times to get there, each time foiled by the weather. I will get there, though. There are thousands of sea birds, including adorable puffins, flying around the islands, and some incredible scenery. Staig Fort. Located on the Ring of Kerry near Caherdaniel, this extensive fort is well worth the slow, narrow road into its domain. It is huge, thick, strong walls which are climbable, and command a view of the ocean, miles away. This would be a perfectly defensible spot for any Celtic chieftain. Éire Stone Circle. This circle is located inside Glenanchaquin Park in the village of Tuassist on the Kerry side of the Beara Peninsula. It is well worth the trek up the stony, narrow road through the park for the view, even if you are uninterested in stone circles. This stone circle is dramatically situated on a spit of land which reaches out into Cluny Loch. You can see the entire valley around you and a waterfall on the far side of the glen. There is a courtesy box which asks for a donation for upkeep of the site near the car park. County Kildare. Curragh Plains. Aka the Curragh of Kildare. While it may seem strange to include almost 50,000 acres of grassland as a hidden place, it is unique, as it is perhaps the oldest and largest tract of natural grassland in Europe, having been in its current state for thousands of years. It has several archaeological sites and was traditionally a place where ancient Irish royals raced their horses. Today, Curragh Camp is where the Irish Army train. The Curragh Military Museum is open to visitors, and boasts an impressive collection of military paraphernalia from Ireland's rich history. Other areas of interest around this national park include Donnelly's Hollow, the Hill of Allen, Father Moore's Well, Old Military Walled Cemetery, amazing open vistas, as well as thousands of freely grazing sheep, deer and other wildlife. The Curragh Racecourse is the largest and most famous in the country. The Curragh Plains played an instrumental function in the Easter Rebellion of 1916. Wandering the hills, you will find dugout trenches under large gorse shrubs which were used by soldiers hiding from British troops. Also, you will find rows of dugout latrines, cannon and gun huts, and practice ranges. The gently rolling hills are popular for walkers and hikers, or you can take a round of golf at the Curragh Golf Course. At the Junction 12 roundabout for Newbridge, take a moment to see the Finn Mac Coohill Monument, which was erected in 2010 to honor the one-time Curragh home of this legendary hero at Dun Éire. Dun Éire. Not to be confused with the Hill of Allen, this is an ancient ceremonial site dating back to around 300 BCE and located on the hill of Knockalin, near Kilcullen behind the Curragh. According to Irish mythology, Dun Éire was one of the great royal sites of early Gaelic Ireland and is believed to have been where the kings of Leinster were inaugurated, and home to the warrior band, the Fianna. It is similar to the other royal sites of Tara, for the kings of Meath, Navan Fort for the kings of Ulster, and Rathcreggan, for the kings of Connaught. There is now an interpretative site in Nicholastown, a townland just south of Kilcullen, featuring a small-scale reproduction of what the mound may have looked like in its time. Maynooth Castle. This ruin is the entrance to the south campus of the National University of Ireland. The castle was built in the 12th century by the Fitzgerald family who occupied this region until the 17th century when it suffered destruction in two major wars, first during the 11 Years' War, aka the Confederate War, and then the Cromwellian War. The Fitzgeralds left Maynooth after Cromwell's siege and the castle fell into disrepair, though some restoration was restarted in 2000 to allow visitors a safe visit. Be sure to stroll around the university, too. This school is the main educational institution for training men to enter the priesthood. The church has wonderful stained glass and stone hand carvings. There is a small and very old apple orchard in the back, and over the stone wall a lovely cottage garden. St. Brigid's Well, Kildare. St. Brigid is one of the 3 patron saints of Ireland, and has dozens of holy wells dedicated to her throughout the island. Echoes of the goddess Brigid are heard in the saints' stories, and some of the wells, like this one, have a clutie tree, a wishing tree, nearby. The well itself has a statue of Brigid holding a flame, as she is dedicated to fire, the hearth, and smithcrafting, as well as poetry. One is meant to tie a piece of cloth to the tree while making a wish. As the cloth deteriorates, the wish is released into the air. Nearby you can visit the Irish National Stud and Japanese Gardens, which also includes the above-mentioned St. Fiacre's Garden. This makes for a lovely afternoon of wandering, especially in foaling season, March through May, as the maras and foals will be in the paddocks stretching their legs. Kildare is only a short drive from Dublin and would make a nice day trip from the city. Straffan Butterfly Farm. For a lovely day of flowers and butterflies, explore the farm and exhibition. This is a great kids' activity, and an opportunity to sit and relax, taking in the Irish beauty which surrounds you. The interpretive center includes displays of unusual insects, spiders, snakes, and more. The small theater offers a glimpse into the life of butterflies and natural flora and fauna to Ireland. The butterfly house is lush with greenery and thick with butterflies from around the world. Out in their own gardens you'll see many of Ireland's native species. This is a fun place to bring the kids. County Kilkenny. Black Abbey. This is one of several religious sites in the medieval city of Kilkenny and is a lovely place to visit. It was established in the 13th century and is today a Catholic Dominican priory. It has a lovely rosary window and a very organic, modern stained glass representing the Holy Flame. The Black Abbey, established in 1225 by William Marshall, son-in-law of Richard Strongbow de Clare, as one of the first houses of the Dominican order in Ireland. The name Black Abbey comes from the Dominicans, who were often referred to as Black Friars on account of the black kappa or cloak which they wear over their white habits. The abbey has had a long and tumultuous history, including suffering through the Black Death, deposition by Queen Elizabeth I, national wars, reclamation of the abbey, and eventual reconsecration, operating today as an active church for Kilkenny locals. Inistioge Village. If you have ever seen the movie Circle of Friends, based on the book written by Irish author Maeve Binchy, you have seen Inistioge, a lovely village centered on a square and surrounded by the rolling hills of County Kilkenny. Nearby, the beautiful 10-arch stone bridge over the River Nowhere, which was built in 1763 on the site of an earlier bridge. Visit some of the shops used in much of the film. Have a short lunch break at the Circle of Friends pub for a great meal. Jerpoint Abbey. I have visited this wonderful abbey 3 times now and love the feel of the place. Founded in the 12th century by Benedictine monks, and then taken over by the Cistercians, the abbey was fully self-contained, including gardens producing food for the monks, an infirmary, granary, and stables, among other outbuildings. It has a wonderful arcade of carvings along one passage, with snakes, kings and queens on each pillar. History tells us that knights on pilgrimage to the Holy Land during the Crusades rescued the bones of Saint Nicholas and brought them to Ireland. They are reputed to be resting somewhere within the church walls at Jerpoint. Every December, locals host a Christmas celebration in the abbey to honor St. Nicholas. Yes, that's St. Nicholas, which is actually where my last name comes from. Kells Priory. Kells Priory is one of the largest and most impressive medieval monastic settlements in Ireland, second only to Glendalough in the Wicklow Mountains, which is a much earlier site. Set on the shores of King's River, this Augustine priory retains its walls and guard towers surrounding the abbey and immediate grounds, taking in a little more than 3 acres in total. This gives the priory the appearance of being a fortress more than a place of worship. However, this is expected, as this was a very important and rich religious site in its day. It has tall medieval towers which strike up against the landscape of the low rolling hills and has been called the Seven Castles as a result. Excavations carried out between 1972 and 1993 revealed more than 20,000 artifacts, pottery, including hem-green, floor and ridge tiles, carved stones, metal objects, and painted window glass, which has allowed the reconstruction of what some of the original windows may have looked like. This extensive ruin is well worth exploring. Kenny's Well. He goes by several names: Kenny, Canek, Canis, Canicus, Kenneth. The 6th century saint even lends his moniker to the city of Kilkenny. Kenny's Well is a short walk from the city centre and protected by a stone house has been built around it. A trough, or gully, directs the holy water into the nearby river. Tradition has it that those leaving Ireland should drink from the well before they depart, though this is not recommended today. The waters were also thought to offer protection from illness and religious faith. The waters also assured of a happy return to Ireland. This well is also said to have been the baptismal site of the last great pagan king, King Brud. Canis is said to be one of the original 12 apostles of Ireland sent out under the blessing of Saint Finian. Kilfane. Near Inistioge is the village of Kilfane. Here you will find the ruins of the 13th century Kilfane church, which have traces of the original consecration crosses, the ogee-headed doorways, remains of the altar, sedilia, and book rest. On the north wall inside the church is the effigy of a Norman knight in full armor. It is referred to as Cantwell Fada, aka the Long Man. This effigy is the tallest of its kind in Ireland, or Britain. Also here is Kilfane House, the seat of the Power family who were responsible for creating Kilfane Glen and Waterfall, a romantic Éire garden and waterfall. Kilmog Portal Tomb. This portal tomb is known locally as Leek na Scale, which means Stone of the Warrior. It is situated near Harristown in South Company. Kilkenny, Ireland. It is the tallest dolmen in Ireland, standing 18 feet at the top of the capstone. The tallest portal stone is 14 feet tall. The sill between them is nearly as high, blocking the entrance. This tomb is spectacular and well worth the drive to see it. Keidler's Inn. Kilkenny is a medieval town and, as such, has many little alleys or slipways with cobblestone streets and hidden passages between buildings. On one such, just near Kilkenny Castle, you will find Keidler's Inn. The place is named after Dame Alice de Keidler, a local resident who was tried for witchcraft in the 13th century. She escaped and disappeared without a trace, but her servant girl and son were caught and tried in her place. We went there for a lovely night of Irish traditional music and enjoyed the medieval decor and atmosphere. Roth House. In the heart of the medieval city of Kilkenny, what would be a better site for a medieval merchant's museum? Roth House was built around 1600 CE and was the home of a merchant called John Roth Fitzpiers. This townhouse is actually made up of 3 houses, 3 enclosed courtyards, and a large, reconstructed garden with orchard, and was turned into a slice of life at the time. Today, the gardens have been restored and part of the house contains a museum with some local genealogy data. It is open to the public, displaying some 2,500 artifacts. County Lewis. Heywood Gardens. Heywood House was originally built here in the late 18th century by Frederick Trench. Typically, manor houses also supported an immaculate garden. While the house has been converted into the local school, the gardens remain open to the public and are a definite must-see. Wander through the high hedges from the parking area and the walled garden suddenly appears. Set on the edge of a hillside, views beyond the estate can be seen over the walls and through porthole-style openings within the wall. The focal point of the sunken garden are oval terraces which descend to a stunning elliptical fountain. The terraces are landscaped with colorful plants and flowers, the walls covered in vines in places. At the back on the top level is a loggia, architectural feature which is not a folly, roofed with red tiles and includes many hand-carved stone figures with inscriptions taken from the writings of Alexander Pope, a popular poet at the time. This site is well signposted from the town of Abbey. Rock of Dunamace. The Rock of Dunamace is one of the most historic sites in Ireland. The castle was built in the late 12th century, most likely by Richard Strongbow de Clare, who was given the land by his father-in-law, Dermot MacMurrough, as a wedding gift on marrying Éire. This site was on the northwestern edge of the Leinster province, ruled by Kind MacMurrough. The keep was erected here to protect provincial boundaries. The lands then passed into the hands when de Clare's daughter married William Marshal, who was known in his day as the greatest knight in England. The property transferred into Mortimer hands when William and Isabel's daughter, Maud, married Roger Mortimer. It stayed in Mortimer hands until the Cromwellian War, when the keep was razed. In the 18th century, Sir John Parnell started rebuilding the banquet hall, but there is no evidence that project was completed. Today visitors can wander the ruins, which overlook surrounding countryside, offering stunning views of patchwork fields. This site is loosely signposted along the motorway around the town of Portlaoise. Timahoe Round Tower. This 12th century round tower is one of many that dot the Irish countryside. It's not the tallest, nor does it have as rich a history as some. What it does have is the only Romanesque doorway. It is, however, not original to the tower. The tower was restored in the 19th century, when the cap, roof, was rebuilt and the original door was restored. Otherwise, the tower remains largely original. Typical of round towers, the only door is set several feet off the ground, the tower only accessed by a ladder which would have been pulled up into the tower in times of trouble. For openings at the top of the tower give 360-degree views around the countryside. County Leitrim. Creevalia Abbey and Friary. Creevalia Abbey, located on the outskirts of Dromahair village, is a Franciscan friary which was founded in 1508 on the banks of the River Bonnet. It was in use until the 17th century, when the Franciscans were forced to leave by the Cromwellian army. The nave, choir, tower and transept are well preserved, including a carving of Saint Francis of Assisi preaching to the birds in the cloister. This site is now protected as a national monument. Glencar Waterfall. Under the looming bulk of Ben Bulben, by the serene Glencar Loch, you can view the Glencar Falls, a spot haunted by the memory of William Butler Yeats. This beautiful waterfall, and the river leading up to it, has been modified for the tourist well enough. A walkway has been built and is maintained, as well as a visitor center. However, it is still relatively easy to find a quiet spot and contemplate the beauty of the surrounding countryside, the loch, and the waterfall. A farm near the entrance has several sheep and chickens to keep you amused, and the loch itself has reeds and breezes to soothe your soul. The loch is only about 7 miles from Sligo town, and while some of the roads are a bit narrow, it's a lovely drive through the trees, where the wandering water gushes from the hills above Glencar, in pools among the rushes that scarce could bathe a star. Yeats, The Stolen Child. Rose of Innisfree Boat Tour. Yeats' country is full of places this famous poet referenced in his work, and this is no exception. This tour, boarded at the dock at Park's Castle, will take you around Loch Gill and the island which was such inspiration for the Irish poet. I will arise and go now, and go to Innisfree, and a small cabin build there, of clay and wattles made. Yeats, The Isle of Innisfree. St. Hugh's Well and Claremore Sweat House. This well and stream is thought to have curative powers, and due to the high iron content from waters coming off the aptly named Sleeve and Iron Mountain, water is actually bright orange. The well is dedicated to St. Hugh, who lived in the 6th century. It is near the town of Claremore, County Limerick. Castle Matrix. Near the South County Limerick town of Rathkeil, Castle Matrix was built in the 15th century by the Fitzgeralds. The name is possibly derived from Caisleen Matries. The Matries were triple mother goddesses of the pagan Celts, a type of pre-Christian trinity. The castle has seen its own strife with the murder of James, the 9th Earl of Desmond, by his tenants. As well, Thomas Southwell rescued 200 Palatine families from Germany and resettled them on the castle grounds in 1709. Further, this was the site where Sir Walter Raleigh met poet Edmund Spenser, who was inspired to write The Faerie Queene. Raleigh was close friends with Edmund Southwell, Thomas's father, and visited the castle often. On one historic visit, Raleigh presented Edmund with a gift of some Virginia tubers which were immediately planted on the castle lands. In 1610, the first crop of potatoes were harvested and distributed throughout the province. By the 1960s, the castle had fallen into disrepair. As was typical during that decade, an American of Irish descent bought the castle and had it restored. It now contains a library with a collection of original documents pertaining to the wild geese. The O'Driscoll family maintains the castle and collection today. Foynes Flying Boat Museum. Even though Foynes had a very short-lived history, 1939 to 1945, it was the primary terminus for the eastern route across the Atlantic. It was also the first route set up for passenger travel and holidaymakers. Pan American World Airways, known as Pan Am, luxury flying boat, the Yankee Clipper, landed at Foynes in July 1939 and was the first commercial passenger flight between Europe and North America. In the short 7 years in which Foynes was the focal point for North Atlantic travel, Foynes saw many of the world's elite, from politicians and international businessmen to film stars, as well as active servicemen and wartime refugees. In 1942, Brendan Oregon opened a restaurant and coffee shop in the Foynes terminal and employed a chef called Joe Sheridan. It was Joe who realized that passengers who had come into the terminal from cold and rainy weather needed something to keep them warm and set about to make his special coffee, which became known as the Irish coffee. The town of Foynes is easily accessed on the N69 south of Limerick City. Loch Gur. On the road to Bruff, this lake forms a horseshoe shape and has many megalithic archaeological sites around it, including Grange Stone Circle, which is the largest stone circle in Ireland. The stones are contiguous, touching each other, rather than standing alone around the circle. It has 113 stones and is 150 feet in diameter. The circle is aligned with the rising sun on summer solstice. Also nearby is a dolmen. The remains of at least 3 crannies are evident, and remains of Stone Age houses have been unearthed. The house outlines are known as the spectacles. A number of ring forts are found in the area, with one hill fort overlooking the lake. Some are Irish national monuments, the whole region a protected area. There is a visitor center with a picnic area near a very scenic spot on the shore. There is a castle near the entrance to the car park, Bortia's Castle, named for Sir George Bortia, the son of the 2nd Earl of Bath, but it requires a bit of hiking to get up to it and is not open to the public. County Derry. Beholden Bown. Built around 1619 by Sir Baptist Jones, Beholden Bown is a fortified house in Bown, or defensive walls, located near Loch Beg. It is open to the public and has some exhibits on local natural history and poetry by the Nobel laureate, Seamus Heaney. County Longford. Éire. This is a village and ruin of a site which was said to have been founded in the 5th century by St. Patrick. Today's village derives its name from a monastery, the Great Abbey of Éire, founded in 1205 by Hiberno-Norman magnate, Rister de Tuit, for Cistercian monks. The monastery was dissolved in 1539, although its ruins are still apparent on approach to the village. An ancient earthenwork, the Dunkla or Black Pig's Dyke, which runs southeastwards from Loch Gowna to Loch Kinnail, goes through the larger parish of Éire and passes about 1 kilometre north of the village. The abbey ruins are very weathered and overgrown. Nearby are the only remains of stone circles in the Midlands, at Clough-Ernall, Cartranbore, and Clough. Patrick's Motte. Granite motte and bailey is a very ancient structure that was supposedly erected some time before the Danish era, the time of the Vikings in Ireland 700–1169 CE. A motte, not to be confused with a moat, a water-filled ditch at the bottom of a motte, is a flat-topped earthen mound, the top of which held a timber tower surrounded by a palisade. Animals and soldiers were housed in the bailey, or courtyard. Richard de Tuit occupied it in 1199 as part of an initiative to extend Norman control over the region. This motte stands 534 feet above sea level and is reputedly the highest motte in Ireland. Stunning views from the summit include 5 lakes, parts of 9 counties, and at the horizon, the outline of the Sliab Bloom Mountains. Many myths surround the site, including one that says there is a castle concealed within the earthworks. Others say the motte secretes vast treasures of gold. A statue of St. Patrick was erected on top of the motte to mark in 1932. County Louth. Mellifont Abbey was the first Cistercian abbey built in Ireland. Founded in 1142 on the orders of St. Malachy, Archbishop of Armagh, Mellifont Abbey sits on the banks of the River Mattock near the town of Drogheda. By 1170, Mellifont had 100 monks and 300 lay brothers and became the model for other Cistercian abbeys built in Ireland. The abbey still bears its formal style of architecture imported from Cistercian abbeys in France. Mellifont was the main abbey in Ireland until it was closed in 1539, when it became a fortified house. Mellifont Abbey is now a ruin, little of the original structure remains. Though you will find a 13th-century lavabo, where the monks washed their hands before eating, some Romanesque arches, and a 14th-century chapter house. There is an exhibit of medieval mason work, a garden center, and a farm as well as a monastic guest house for a quiet retreat. St. Mocta's House. St. Mocta is thought to be one of St. Patrick's disciples. There are no remains of St. Mocta's settlement. The ruined buildings at the site today are those of the 13th-century Church of St. Mary's Augustinian Priory and the stone-roofed oratory known as St. Mocta's House, which dates back to the late 12th century. County Mayo. Ackle's Abandoned Village. This is a village filled with abandoned cottages, grey bones baking in the sun. It is sobering to explore this large community. Imagine those that used to occupy the houses, while seeing the modern whitewashed houses on the distant hillsides. Located at Slievemore, only the sheep still live in the 80 roofless stone homes. The cottages date from at least the 19th century and could be much older. Ashleam Bay. Achill Island is very easy to get to, as there is a causeway built, so no ferry is necessary. It's not far from Westport, perhaps 20 miles northwest of the city. It is definitely worth a day trip to explore its infinite views. The Atlantic Drive meanders around the island, and there are many places to explore and find on this path. My favorite spot on the island is, hands down, Ashleam Bay. The bay has a sandy beach, keen strand, a rugged white cliff, from which you can witness the waves pounding in from the Atlantic and see the tiny houses dotting the hillsides. There is a narrow switchback road to get up to the cliff top, but don't be worried, the buses can make it. We saw one while we were contemplating it. And if they can make it, so can you. The day we went, there were high winds, about 40 to 45 miles per hour, and it was exhilarating to stand in this powerful force of nature. The sheep were less impressed by the fury, I think. Side Fields. This is a Neolithic site dedicated to the oldest known stone-walled fields in the world, approximately 6,000 years old. There is a visitor center which helps to interpret the findings, and it is fantastically situated on a sea cliff on the coast road to Belderigg. Kong, one of the enduring legends of film history, is the John Ford film, The Quiet Man, starring John Wayne and Maureen O'Hara. Set in rural Ireland in the early 20th century, many of the original film locations and buildings can be found around the village of Sone, such as Pat Cohan's bar, the river and bridge, and the old, ruined church. Alas, the cottage, White O'Moran, is lying in ruins, but plans are afoot to restore it to glory. There is a small museum to the film in town, in a lovely, thatched building, around the corner from Pat Cohan's bar. The bar is recently restored, but don't try to go in just for a pic. The owners prefer if you buy a pint. Nearby is the impressive Ashford Castle, and much of the film was on the grounds of this grand estate. Croagh Patrick. This is not a hidden place, but it is a very mystical place, and well worth a visit, even if you don't climb it. Nicknamed the Reek, this 764-meter mountain rises up near the town of Westport, dominating the skyline. It is a pilgrimage site on Reek Sunday, when thousands of pilgrims climb it, many in bare feet, to reach the small shrine to St. Patrick on the peak. The saint supposedly fasted for 40 days on the summit and built a small church there in the 5th century. Drive from Darragumlack to Dogs Bay. This lonely stretch of coastal road in Connemara is full of beauty, brash, and bold. It is rocky outcroppings, sandy beaches, and friendly ponies. Starting from Clifton, you follow the R341 down along the coast, and eventually make it to Roundstone. Make sure to gas up first, as petrol stations are rare. You may want to pack a picnic lunch for the beach. There are several hamlets along the way with silly names: Darragumlack, Ballyconneely, Mellamoonines, Furglass, Duahulla. However, the views are anything but amusing. They are stunning. There are a few commercial holiday cottages, and I recall a sign which advertised pony treks on the beaches, but other than this seems to be a mostly forgotten corner of the island. Keep to the coastal road and explore the area. There are shades of the Boyne here and there in the rocky landscape, but the fine sandy beach bottom belies the karstic landscape. Oh, and if you are into radio history, there is a site where the first transatlantic radio station was housed by Marconi, on the Darragumlack Bog. We spent a lovely morning driving along this road and ended up having lunch in Roundstone, a well-spent part of our day. Famine Memorial. This stirring piece of sculpture by John Bean is called Coffin Ship, and it looks, from afar, like a bronze sculpture of one of the many tall ships which took the Irish from their homeland to the New World during the time of the Great Famine. However, as you get closer, it may chill you to realize the many figures on the boat are actually flowing skeletons, representative of the thousands and thousands who perished on ships stuffed with passengers, in horrible conditions. Yet, they went, because the conditions back in Ireland were worse. It is a very sobering piece of art. I believe it is made more so by the fact it is in a lovely park, with a beautiful view of the bay. It makes the horror much more intense. Please, make some time to stop here while near Westport. Remember those who passed away to try to make a better life for themselves, their descendants, and their people. The memorial is about 3 miles from Westport, towards Crove Patrick. Indeed, you can see the mountain behind it in many pictures. Highest sea cliffs in Europe. At a height of almost 700 meters, Croaghaun Mountain on Achill Island has the highest sea cliffs in Ireland and Great Britain, and arguably, in Europe. While you can drive to the car park at Keem Bay, you must then hike uphill from there, a journey well rewarded with fantastic views over the Atlantic Ocean, unusual rock formations, and hidden mountain lakes. The area is home to some peregrine falcons, dolphins, porpoises, whales and basking sharks make their home in the nearby waters. Kildavnet Castle. Kildavnet Castle, also called Carrick Kildavnet Castle, is a simple 15th-century tower copied Norman designs. The castle is about 40 feet in height and has 3 levels, including a traditional vaulted ceiling. There is a finely preserved keep includes the remains of a boat slipway to one side. The tower's location was of strategic importance, situated at the mouth of Achill Sound, the passage that connects Clew Bay with Blacksod Bay. While it's associated with the famous pirate queen, Grace O'Malley, the castle was most likely built by her ancestors in about 1429. There's no doubt that she did occupy this keep in her lifetime, as it was part of her holdings, though her main residence was at nearby Rockfleet Castle. Situated on a picturesque coastline near a small village, and just down the road from the stunning Keem Bay in Ashleam, this strong structure is literally right on the water, making this a definitely must-see. County Meath. Hill of Tara. This is a site of ancient power, both spiritual and secular. For hundreds of years, the kings of Ireland were crowned here, and the earthworks and mounds speak of this ancient age. This is an especially good place if you can get there early, before the tour groups start. I went in 1996 and again in 2006, and it is a spectacular feeling to stand on top of the hill and see Ireland spread out before you like a patchwork quilt. It looks as if you can see the entire island from there. It is a humbling and beautiful experience. Knowth, Douth, and 4 Nooks. Living under the shadow of their grand cousin, Newgrange, the lesser-known passage tombs of Knowth, Douth, and 4 Nooks often get overlooked. However, they are unique and interesting, and well worth a visit. The tombs have carved curbstones encircling it with various designs of megalithic art on them and have been dated to about 2500 BCE. I first visited back in 1996, before the visitor center required a tour to experience the tombs. Now, you must go through the Brú Boyne Visitor Center in Donor, the same place you get Newgrange tours. Loughcrew. Near the town of Oldcastle, this is a megalithic burial ground from about 3500 BCE near the Slieve na Coilí, or the Hag's Mountain. It is older and more accessible than nearby Newgrange. It has no visitor center and may have limited access, so please check before visiting. The legend is that the buildings were created when a giant hag, the Cailleach, strode across the land, dropping stones from her apron. County Monaghan. Castle Blaney. This Georgian manor house was once host to the Hope Diamond, and then became a convent before being abandoned. It was converted into a hotel at one point, but then closed after a fire caused considerable damage to the house. The grounds and lake are a lovely walk and exploration opportunity. Castle Leslie. This is a 1,000-acre estate and country house near the village of Glaslow, and is in the Scottish baronial style. There are gardens and a Renaissance-style cloister, 3 lakes, and a crannig on Dream Lake. The houses has the Leslie family still in residence, but have opened the estate to paying guests. There is a cookery school, a spa, a bar and restaurant, and riding trails. County Offaly. Charleville Castle. This is a neo-Gothic architecture structure from the late 18th century and is home to a turbulent past. It has an impressive number of windows in the frontage, include a huge window over the front door, exquisite ceiling details, and perhaps even a ghost. Clonmacnoise. This is not a hidden place, it's a major monastic site situated on the River Shannon. However, because it is rather inland and hidden away from the main tourist trail, I feel it needs to be pointed out as a spectacular place to visit. It has not one, but two round towers, though one is crumbling. The site was established in the 6th century and is extensive in ancient architecture, graves, and Celtic high crosses. Some artifacts have been relocated into the visitor center to keep them from the elements, and replicas are placed outside. County Roscommon. Carrowcurry Cottage. This lovely place is dedicated to the mystical ways of Ireland. John Wilmot has built a garden with labyrinths, host afternoons of poetry and stories, music, and inner work. You can stay in the lodge farm or come by for a short visit. They are also a wealth of information of the sacred spaces in Ireland and have been kind enough to have contributed many suggestions I've included in this book. Carrowmore Megaliths. Just about 3 miles north of Sligo, you can enter an ancient world of tombs, stone circles, and cairns. There are over 30 monuments in Carrowmore, all within about 2 square miles, with a nice visitor center to help you understand the history of each. The monuments range from about 5,500 to 6,500 years old, and range from small, crumbling tombs to massive stone circles and cairns, such as Queen Maev's Cairn. If you enjoy exploring megalithic sites, this is a must. Dedicate at least a couple hours to rambling among the stones and have decent walking shoes. While the OPW does a good job of maintaining the site, some of the grass and hills are a bit rough to walk on. There are a couple more circles on the other side of the road, so don't miss them. And say hello to the friendly horses in the next field. Cave of the Cats. This is not a site for the faint of heart, it is a small cave entrance that is, legend says, the entrance to hell. It has been a place of power for 6,000 years. Also known as Owainagat, it is associated with the Morrigan, goddess of battle and strife, and is said to spew forth demonic creatures at Samhain or Halloween. It is a small, unmarked wound in the side of a hill, almost obscured by greenery, and looks more like an animal's cave lair. If you do decide to try it, check in first at the Cruachan Éire Heritage Centre at Tulsk. County Sligo. Caves of Kesh and Keshcarin Mountain. Also known as Keshcoirin, this area has 17 caves under a mountain and an unopened cairn on the top. Lugnasa festivals were held on the mountain, and the place is associated with both Luff and Cormac mac Airt, who was supposedly raised in the caves by a she-wolf. Creevy Keel Court Tomb. About 15 miles north of Sligo town, there is a massive passage tomb dating about 6,000 years old called Creevy Keel. It is right on the main road, and has a small car park to stop in. There is a clootie tree, or wish tree, at the entrance. You tie a ribbon or rag to the tree, and as the piece disintegrates, your wish is released into the world. Please don't tie candy wrappers and plastic bags, I saw plenty of those on the tree. Besides, they won't disintegrate for decades. The tomb complex is quite large and consists of several courtyards and passages between each. The passages are flanked by tall standing stones called orthostats. The site has been extensively restored and is worth at least an hour of exploration. Deer Park Court Cairn. Many consider this to be the finest example of a central court tomb in Ireland. It sits on a ridge over Lough Gill and surrounded by mountains. It has an oval shape about 50 feet long, with 2 galleries at the east end and 1 at the west. Labby Rock. This is a rather amusing dolmen, as the capstone is covered in growth, making it look like it has a bushy head of hair. It's near the town of Carrickglass, and is named after the Irish word for bed. Loch Mealach. This is a lake with several crannies on man-made islands and dated from the early Christian period. Tullow O'Carolan, Ireland's last true bard, is buried nearby in the Kilronan graveyard. The site of the Kilronan Castle has a structure called the Fairy House, a folly built for the castle. The Knockranny Wood on the shores is a wonderful place for a walk, and St. Lazaire's Holy Well is worth a visit. Strand Hill Seaweed Baths. Who couldn't use a little pampering? Since Victorian times, spa baths in the west of Ireland offered some relaxation and tranquility. This tradition continues a few miles from Sligo town and Strandhill, where several companies offer full-service spa treatments with seaweed and mineral baths. Rath Cruachan. Known as Queen Maev's Seat, the Queen in the Ulster cycle of Irish tales, this is a complex of archaeological sites near the village of Tulsk and is the traditional capital of the ancient province of Connaught. It is the setting of several tales, such as the Táin Bó Cúailnge. County Tipperary. Ardmale Castle. This is a ruin of a small tower house about 4 stories high, located about 5 kilometers north of Cashel. It has stairs for climbing, but they are not for the timid. There is a vaulted loft, and a bit of a wild garden at the top levels. I wouldn't recommend testing the latrine hole, but there are secret chamber entrances and very scary stairways. Éire Castle. This impressive castle has been restored to medieval glory and is one of the finest medieval fortresses in Ireland. Built in the 12th century, it was the seat of the powerful Butler family for many centuries. It was also one of the few castles to escape destruction by Oliver Cromwell's armies. Its location on the River Suir made it ideal for use as a setting for the movie Excalibur. There is a great audio show in the Little Theatre, and you can wander around on your own. Celtic Plantarium. This Dundrum attraction has a rare collection of 60,000 plants, shrubs and trees with 8 acres, and 2 miles of pathways through them. It has a range of reconstructed follies and field monuments, making the journey sort of like a concentrated trip through the formal gardens of Ireland. The Craft Granary. If you want to do some local shopping, make a visit to this lovingly restored grain store, which showcases local handcrafted items from the area. It has cards, photos, woodcrafts, glassware, and all sorts of exquisite gifts, none of the typical touristy tack that many gift stores have all too much of. It is down the street from Castle Éire, towards the center of town. Nenagh Castle. In the town of Nenagh, this castle is a well-preserved round Norman tower keep, built around 1200 CE. It was still held by the Butler family until 1997, when the last owner died without a male heir. The views from the top of the recently opened tower are commanding, and the crenellations and windows at the top make it charming and quite picturesque. St. Berihurt's Kyle and Well. The Kyle and Well are well hidden in the Galtee Mountains. It is an adventure, but if you persist, it is well worth exploring. There are 72 early medieval inscribed stone slabs, and the Kyle is a large oval enclosure with a bank of stones and earth. Some of the slabs and crosses date from the 7th century and was thought to be the site of an early church founded by St. Berihurt, a Saxon cleric. There is a clootie tree for tying wishes, a small sacred spring, and a boulogne stone for collecting water, which is said to imbue healing powers. Shanbally Edmund Court Cairn. This court tomb near the village of Rear Cross is a 2-chambered gallery and runs about 5 meters long. It has a horseshoe-shaped structure and is situated on a hill high enough to see the hills surrounding the area. It is not difficult to get to as it's in a residential area, and there is a car park nearby. Swiss Cottage. This is a charming, almost over-charming, Victorian cottage built by the Butler family of Éire Castle to use as a place to entertain guests. The building style is cottage orne, a type of ornamental folly. Everything about the cottage architecture is derived from nature, from the spiderweb design in the entry hall to the hand-painted green ivy wallpaper and matching china. It is like something out of a fairy tale, with thatched roof, stone steps, and a long, picturesque walk from the castle to the cottage along the River Suir. It has an extensive guided tour inside the house, and plenty of places to wander outside. Enjoy yourself in this Victorian retreat. County Tyrone. Beagmore Stone Circles. This is a complex of 7 stone circles on the Sparran Mountains, near the town of Cookstown. There are stone rows, cairns, and pairs of standing stones. The stones are small, and few are more than a half-meter in height. Donamore High Cross. The monastery at Donamore was founded by St. Patrick in the 6th century and houses an impressive high cross. The cross has carved scenes on both sides, including the Annunciation to the shepherds, the Adoration of the Magi, and several others, including the Crucifixion. While it is badly weathered, it is very impressive for its height and carvings. There is a replica in the nearby cemetery that shows how the carvings may have looked when new. President Grant's ancestral home. For those with an interest in U.S. history, a visit to President Grant's ancestral home might be of interest. It has been restored to that of a typical 19th-century cottage, with a turf fire and outhouses. Admission is free to the Simpson farm and it has been restored to look as it did in the 19th century. It is close to the town of Ballygolly. St. Patrick's Chair. This is a rock construction, also known as the Druid's Chair and Well, or St. Bridget's Well. It is off the Ulster Way footpath and within Altadevon Wood. The chair is a huge stone block shaped like a chair or throne. The well is filled with natural water and is reputed to have healing powers. Wellbrook Beetling Mill. Beetling was a step in the production of linen, and this mill still holds the original machinery from the late 18th century. There is a wheel, sluice gate, and traditional cottage in a lovely, idyllic setting. It was the last working beetling mill in Northern Ireland, located in Cookstown, and has on-hand demonstrations of the linen. County Waterford. Dromina Gate. This Hindu Gothic gate in Cappoquin, on the road to Villarstown, was built early in the 19th century, and is unique. The original building was made from wood and papier-mâché, for the owner and his wife, and they loved it so much, they rebuilt it in stone. King John's Castle, aka Dungarvan Castle. Located in the heart of Dungarvan, this castle is a polygonal shell keep with an enclosing curtain wall, and it dates to the 12th century. This is more common to England than Ireland. The keep includes a military barracks which are restored and open to visitors with an explanatory exhibition. County Westmeath. Beehive Tomb. This tomb, built by Adolphus Cook for his father, was meant to reincarnate the deceased into a bee, complete with a hole on the top so he can fly out. Cook himself evidently dug foxholes, thinking he would be reincarnated as a fox. It is located within the grounds of St. John the Baptist's Church in the townland of Rionella. Hill of Wishnack. Historically, the Hill of Wishnack was the seat of the High Kings of Ireland, along with the Hill of Tara, which probably superseded the honour. It is located between the villages of Ballymore and Luffenavely, just west of Mullinga, and is considered the geographic centre, or mythical navel of the island. There have been ceremonies and rituals performed there back through the ancient tales and stories. Around the hill are many places with spiritual connections, such as barrows, cairns, a holy well, and ancient roads. It is also considered the place where the goddess Éire met Amergin the bard when the Milesians came to Ireland. The Jealous Wall. This was a large folly, or sham ruin, built on the Belvedere house grounds by Earl Robert Rochfort. It is located between Loughnell and Mullinga Golf Club. He built this, the largest folly in Ireland, when his brother built a large house next door, so he wouldn't have to see it. There are several gardens, homes, and other follies on the grounds of the house. Kilbeggan Distillery. Kilbeggan is a small pot still distillery on the River Brosna and offers both regular tours and VIP tours. The VIP tour will give you a closer look at the process and a personal tour guide. You can even go home with a bottle of whiskey and a personalized label, if you like. County Wexford. Blackwater Village Grotto. If you like finding hidden holy wells, here is one hidden near Blackwater Village. There is a thatched cottage, a stone bridge, river and waterfall, and a Marian shrine. There is a procession from St. Bridget's Church every year during the Feast of Corpus Christi. Hook Head. While lighthouses are typically dramatically situated, the Hook Lighthouse is also one of the oldest in the world, and the oldest operating lighthouse in Ireland. It was founded by Welsh monk St. Dubhain in the 5th century, though at the time it was merely a bonfire. The Normans built a more permanent structure in the 13th century, and monks manned the lighthouse with peat and wood fires for centuries. There is a nearby castle called Crook Castle, which may have inspired the phrase by hook or by crook. Tintern Abbey. On Bannow Bay, this is a Cistercian monastery which passed through many hands, each one leaving its mark in architecture and structure. It was built by William Marshall around 1200 CE, as legend has it, as a result of a vow he made when his boat was caught in a storm. As a result, it is sometimes known as Tintern de Voto, or Tintern of the Vow. William Marshall also founded the town of New Ross, which is famous for the Rose Tapestry, Ireland's equivalent of the Bayeux Tapestry. The abbey was styled after Tintern Abbey in Wales and is now a partially restored ruin. County Wicklow. Glendalough. Glendalough means the Glen of Two Lakes, and it is a delightful place. It has an extensive monastery, round tower, visitor center, all in a beautiful, peaceful valley. The biggest problem is that everyone knows it, and it is frequently overrun with busloads of tourists, masking the quiet serenity of the site. The solution is to arrive early or late, when most of the other visitors aren't there. When you do, you can drink in the spirituality of the place and setting. Venture off to the upper lake, explore to find the Reefort Church, St. Kevin's Cell, Temple na Skellig, and St. Kevin's Bed. Powiscourt Falls, Estate and Gardens. Nestled near Great Sugarloaf Mountain, this lovely spot is often cited as the highest waterfall in Ireland at a height of 400 feet. There are rocks at the bottom to climb upon, and a playground for the children. It is nearby the Powiscourt Estate, which is also worth some exploration. Only a portion of the house is open for visitors as it was damaged by fire in 1974 and partially renovated in 1996, but the gardens are the largest gardens in Ireland and a must-see. Wander through the Japanese garden, Italianate garden, rose garden, and herb garden. Climb the Pepper Pot Tower, stroll along Rhododendron Walk, which is stunningly beautiful when in bloom in June, find the Dolphin Pond and Pet Cemetery, and view the largest pond on the estate, Trinton Pond, from the famous Perron, and many more areas in the luscious backdrop of the imposing house. Episodes of the TV series, The Tudors, and a scene in the film Excalibur were filmed around the gardens and waterfall. Wicklow Mountains. This is another of those too big to be hidden places, but often it is missed by those charmed by Dublin and the more specific sites. There are walking trails and lots of places to enjoy nature with climbing, hunting, fishing, and picnics, but even just driving through this park on one of the lonely, winding roads is worth dedicating some time and wonder. It is designated as a national park and has many particular sites worth exploring, such as Glenmacnas Waterfall, the Hill Forts and Abbey near Baltinglass, and Glendalough Lakes and Monastery. Conclusion. I hope your journey through this book brought you delight, knowledge, and a passion for the magic and mystery which is my soul's home, Ireland. I do believe places we go, things we see, can be enriched by background knowledge in myth, history, and a sense of place. My purpose in writing this book was to share this background with others, and perhaps infect them with my sense of wonder at the Emerald Isle. Truly, any place is magical with the right frame of mind and the right attitude when visiting. However, I think Ireland holds a special bit of magic of its very own, secure in the mystery of history and the wealth of historical sites, beautiful gardens, hidden wells, and megalithic monuments. It is a place to hold dear into our hearts, whether we visit for a few days or a few years. Some of us lose our hearts forever in the Emerald Hills and hidden hollows, looking for the Sidhe and dark riders in the night. Thank you! Thank you so much for listening to this guide. If you've enjoyed the story, please consider leaving a review so other readers can discover Ireland's magic. If you would like to get updates, sneak previews, sales, and contests, please sign up for my newsletter. Discover other books by this author through Green Dragon Publishing at www.greendragonartist.com. About the author. Christy Nicholas writes under several pen names, including Rowan Dillon, C.N. Jackson, and Emmeline Rees. She's an author, artist, and accountant. After she failed to become an airline pilot, she quit her ceaseless pursuit of careers that begin with the letter A and decided to concentrate on her writing. Since she has project completion compulsion, she is one of the few authors with no unfinished novels. Christy has her hands in many crafts, including digital art, beaded jewelry, writing, and photography. In real life, she's a CPA, but having grown up with art all around her, it sort of infected her, as it were. She wants to expose the incredible beauty in this world, hidden beneath the everyday grime of familiarity and habit, and share it with others. She uses characters out of time and places infused with magic and myth, writing magical realism stories in both historical fantasy and time travel flavors. Social media links. Blog, www.greendragonartist.net. Website, www.greendragonartist.com. Facebook, www.facebook.com. Instagram, www.instagram.com.